Hello and welcome back to Double One Radio Weekly. This is episode number 15. I tried to go for like the Keemstar cadence
Yeah.
in that intro,
Don't,
and
just
I
don't.
really
Not
hated
even
myself
as a-
as soon as I
Not
did
even
it.
as a joke. Not
No,
even.
I really
No,
hated myself as soon as I did it. Oh.
No, that it could have been a joke.
Yeah, it was not a great joke. So today we got a round table. We're trying out 5 people to see how it goes. So we've got myself. I'm your host Ryan, joined by my round table of co-hosts, guests, moderators, whatever podcasting term you want to use. We got Wyatt.
Me.
Great. Alex.
Hi.
Ben.
Hey, I'm here again.
And Tess.
Hey, I don't even think you introduced me last time.
Well, that's a weird one. That's a Games Club episode, which is all bets are off on Games Club.
Yeah.
Okay.
Games Club isn't a real thing. Like it's a fake podcast.
I'm Ben's mother.
Yeah.
That's not true. That's just established
I
right
have
now.
so many questions.
That's how I'm gonna introduce myself to every single one of Ben's friends. Not just
Yep.
anybody ever.
Great.
Well, you see, the thing is, I knew you before,
Regardless,
so
Well, hey,
we're fine.
what's the
But-
show about?
Yeah, we have a lot to talk about, okay? And by a lot to talk about, we mean people really just can't keep it in their pants. So,
I hate when that happens.
To put it very lightly.
It just comes out sometimes.
that's not quite what happened.
Oh,
Basically,
God.
oh, no. I've opened the floodgates. All right. So we're going to start the podcast without the game because we're going to talk about some fairly heavy stuff. And we want to get
So
that out
no
of the
fun.
way before the normal podcast sections, and then we'll do like a mid-break for the game
Do an
to
interlude.
reset our minds and like calm down a bit after what's probably about to be a little bit heated. So basically, the cliff notes of what we're about to talk about is the Smash YouTuber / streamer Zero did some sketchy stuff. And by sketchy stuff, we mean pretty much sexual predator type stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a little sketchy.
Slightly lighter, Ubisoft is cleaning house and actually showing their commitment to the statements they've made over the past month or so about diversity and encouraging a safe workplace by essentially ousting some problematic employees, including one who nobody ever thought would be able to leave because he's in such a powerful position. Not anymore. And then we're going to briefly talk about a few other things that came up, the cliff notes of stuff that happening with a bunch of other streamers. We got some stuff with Cryotic, with Angry Joe, with the OPG group. Basically, it's been a chaotic month, and a lot of this stuff's kind of come to light in that past month. So we're gonna do the big one first and get out of the way, which is Zero. So for anyone who is not in the loop, Zero is a Smash YouTuber. So if you're not big in like Smash fighting game stuff, you probably don't know who he is. But he used to run the tournament circuit. He's pretty well known. He's very public with his Smash stuff. And very recently, a bunch of allegations came out against him, which he responded to, essentially saying that they were true and kind of trying to minimize the impact it had in his life. And then a bunch more came out showing that he did a lot more than he admitted to, and a lot of it was real bad. That's the gist of it.
Yeah.
Oh my god, I moved the thing. I gotta fix it. There we go.
You moved the thing. What the heck?
I moved the background on the Twitch recording, so we had like a black screen for a second. We're good. Don't worry about it.
All
So, basically, the outline of this is that we're talking about all the weird sexism and sexual predator stuff going on in the games industry right now, especially in competitive gaming communities. We're using Zero as kind of the mouthpiece for this because Zero is the case that has a lot of proof, and there's a massive document that I'm going to be linking in the description for this podcast that you can go to if you really want to, which is 58 pages of essentially as evidence
It's a
brought
lot of pages.
together. Yeah, it's a lot.
Wanna read it?
Brought together.
Well, a lot of it's screenshots.
Some nice
Most of it is
bedtime
screenshots
story.
of text.
Yeah. Wait. I thought you said screenshots of tests. I was like,
Yeah. We got a lot of screenshots of tests going around.
Tess, you were involved in all of this.
I don't know
Yeah.
if you heard my like wait, but I didn't even finish it. I was like,
Yeah. So no.
oh,
No, it's of text messages.
It's kind of hard when my name sounds like
Yeah,
text and
Yeah.
yes,
text messages, Skype logs, all sorts of stuff.
tests. You know.
Yeah, so I'm gonna let you guys determine how into depth we go on these, because
I mean,
it's a conversation that, to be fair, we aren't the most informed people to make this, or the people that really need to have a platform based on this. But at the same time, I think we have a responsibility to bring this stuff up when it comes up, or else we're not doing our job correctly, even though this isn't a job, it's just a podcast we run. But it would feel
But our job
disingenuous if we
still
didn't address
stands.
this. Yeah, that's the gist of it. So anyone have anything specific they want to talk about with this stuff?
I didn't really like read too much into it. I just saw the part where he like forced her to like watch porn. And
Yeah,
I was like, I think I'm gonna stop reading for now.
yeah. So what I'm actually probably going to link in the description, instead of linking directly to the document, is a Reddit post on the Smash subreddit that is a TLDR of everything that happened, because reading the actual document gets a little difficult. It describes a lot of bad stuff that I think
See,
most people
I
would not
avoid men in
like
the
to read
Smash
about.
community.
Yeah.
And the Smash community has
I've-
been kind of up in arms over all this.
Because I've had my fair share of men in Smash communities. And it didn't turn out very good. He was kind of scary.
Yeah.
So you know what? I'm not surprised. I hope
That's a great way
Smash
to
players
talk about
don't
interesting
hear
way to
this
put
and
it.
is like,
Fine, we got unique perspectives on this podcast.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's the gist of it. Like, a lot of this stuff is real legal speak stuff, which we're not going to go into because, again, we're not the people
We're
that
not
do
lawyers.
that. But the reason a lot of this became public was because the victims tried the legal system and it failed spectacularly
So yeah,
and did nothing, which happens a
Well,
lot all
This-
over the world.
it does.
Yep.
Because
They
I
do.
don't remember even who it was for at this point, but there was somebody who, was making the point like, oh, why not go through legitimate, methods to bring these guys to justice, and then they're just like, well, we try that, and it just
Well,
don't
I mean,
work.
if the people that are being accused have a lot of money,
Yeah,
Then it's absolutely going to
Then
be swept
there's
under the rug
just
as much as possible.
yeah, exactly. So, I mean, if you're a famous YouTuber, you're gonna have a decent amount of money. So,
Yeah. And a lot of this is also Zero's a famous YouTuber, and he also has a young audience. His demographic is pretty young.
Mhm.
that's just all.
Yeah.
Easily manipulatable.
A lot of the worry is that if people don't bring this out about him, his younger audience can, because young people are very easily, I don't want to say manipulated,
Especially
but
when
they're
they're-
impressionable.
Well, when you look up to someone like that and then they do something bad, if you're that young, you're gonna assume that it's okay. And
Yeah, especially if they
just 'cause it's
apologize.
the
Like,
person, yeah, and then they're like, "I'm sorry, this isn't me. This isn't who I am." And then you're just like, "Oh my god, they apologized. They're such a good person." But it's just because you're young and you're naive, so you just don't.
yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's the gist of it. There's some more stuff coming out now about some possible involvement from Sky Williams, who is another pretty well-known YouTuber. He's done videos with Donkey in the past, where he was the owner of that house, the Smash House, as it's been called for this, that a lot of the stuff happened in. And there's suspicions that he knew about it. We don't know if this is... by this point, we know some of it is true. So we do know Sky had some knowledge of what was going on, but not to what degree, or if he tried to stop things. But it doesn't look great on his end right now.
so
I'm
it's
gonna leave it
just
at
a run of the mill sexual assault scandal. We love them,
Yeah.
and they just keep coming up.
Just that,
It's so fun.
maybe consider when you're a young person that moving to a large 24-person house with a bunch of streamers who are
Not the
mostly
best
underage, probably not a great idea.
Yeah, but they wanted to throw down, and you know what? They did.
Yeah. It's a murky situation. That's the gist of it. I think
Yeah.
we don't really need to keep going into detail because you can find a lot more in-depth opinions about this and see all the whole situation with what I've linked in the description. So go there if you want more information. Next up, we have the Ubisoft stuff, which is essentially they ousted 3 employees. Let me pull up their names. We got Sergei Heskowit. I don't know how to pronounce his last name. It's got it's got the E with the 2 dots.
Yeah.
You know?
So like it's an umlaut, but an e.
Yeah.
We don't know how to even pronounce an umlaut.
Who was so
but-
this is the person that people really thought Ubisoft wouldn't do anything about because he is was the chief creative officer. And important to note here, these are all worded as the people resigning or choosing to step down. In corporate speak, that generally means they were asked to leave and
Fired.
had the option of being fired or gracefully exiting. Generally, they will choose to exit because it looks a lot better as if you're taking some responsibility. So he has stepped
And
down.
then they can end up getting another job somewhere and doing the same thing.
Yeah, hopefully not, because I think this is
Being
right
so
now the
cynical.
games industry is kind of blacklisting people that do this. So hopefully they learn from their mistakes and don't try any of the stuff they've tried in the past again. We can't be too lax about that, but hopefully. Again, that's probably naive, but at least they're not involved with Ubisoft anymore, which is good because Ubisoft has a lot of power in the games industry. And for the temporary time, the role is being taken by Yves Guillemot? Guillemot?
I think it's Guillemot.
Guillemot?
It's
That makes a lot
French,
more
yeah.
sense. French name.
I think
Who's the CEO of Ubisoft during the interim. And if people don't know what the chief creative officer did, essentially he had final say on what got made and what didn't. So essentially, this guy had enough power to be like, I don't like this project, it's not going through, or I really want to push this project and push it through. Which is scary when it's in the hands of someone who's got a bunch of abuse allegations against them. Again, this is one of the situations where we don't know how much of this is true, but there's a lot of people coming out with this stuff, and there are logs of him on, like, I think there's Tinder logs of what he said on Tinder, which is a little extra, but
I believe those were some of the screenshots, yeah.
yeah. But yeah, we don't really have a lot more information about that. Most of this is being kept under closed doors, which is understandable considering it's a large corporation. Usually these things are handled internally. Yeah.
Which, if they're handled correctly, then that's great.
Yeah, it's just the worry was that they wouldn't be. But this is
Oh, yeah.
definitely a step in the right direction.
Usually when they don't get handled properly, then they'll come public or something. Somebody
Yeah.
will eventually.
One would hope.
Which is basically
would
what happened.
Yeah.
Although at least now the company is responding. So we also have Yanis Milat, who was the director of Ubisoft's Canadian studios, stepping down and leaving the company. Apparently there were recent allegations, like this is directly from the article, there were recent allegations that came to light in Canada against multiple employees that made it impossible for him to continue in this position. I think he's kind of the one we have the least information about. I don't think there's any real information about what actually happened, at least not in this article. So we'll kind of glaze over that, but he is leaving the company. And then we have they're replacing, so this one's worded a bit differently. They are appointing, instead of saying that Cécile Cornet, who was the former head of HR, is stepping down, they're saying they're appointing a new head of HR. And apparently they're saying that she believes it's the best interest of the company's unity for her to step down, and a suitable replacement search is beginning immediately by an industry recruiting firm. So that is still up in the air. We also don't know if she's leaving the company or not. We just know she's stepping down from that role. And also, again, we don't know any other information about her, really. It's more, she's not really a public figure in terms of what's going on with Ubisoft. Yeah, that's most of it. Anyone surprised by the stance they're taking on this?
No.
Or at least the
Absolutely not.
immediate action?
No. I think they'd have to maintain a positive image. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I guess, I don't know. It's corporations. And they tend to be not so great people. So
Yeah, the big question
think-
mark here was always about Sergey. As most
Yeah.
people kind of assumed that he was in a position that he really couldn't be fired or asked to resign. But it's happened. So clearly that was not the case.
Whenever
I think if you do anything severe enough, you can be asked to leave. We don't know what.
America's political situation would disagree with you.
Yeah, that's true. But he's also not He's also not a political figure. He's a
That's true.
he's a game manager. Like he's not even one of the well, he is an executive, but he's not like one of the high up executives.
I mean,
still
he is.
is
He's the
down on,
chief
like-
creative officer. That's like
yeah,
one
but
of the
he's
highest
he's
positions.
still part of the game dev process. Like he's not completely
Yeah, he's
removed.
not just a manager or producer.
Right. He's not
Yeah.
just like one of the contributors or whatever.
Shareholders.
He doesn't give them a lot of money. Is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and whatever kind of like announcement or press release or whatever that they make about this, it's important to kind of separate PR speak from what they're actually doing or what they're actually saying, because a lot of the times those tend to be very contradictory. Or at least yeah. So it's really important whenever we see anything from them about this that we try and parse out the important information in terms of like what they're actually going to be
You
doing.
could probably fill a whole different dictionary with
Absolutely.
the jargon that's used there.
This entire article is legal speak. Essentially, this is not an article that's meant for consumers or anything like that. It's essentially a shareholder document, but it was released publicly, so people do know about all this. And then the final group of things we had to talk about are some allegations that were raised against a number of YouTubers and streamers. We're not going to go into detail about these situations because there's so many, and there's a lot of difficulty in knowing what here is real and what here is people taking the opportunity of so many people coming out with information to put in false information. So we're not going to cover these in detail, but essentially stuff came out against Angry Joe. I think most of that has been proven false at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Wyatt can correct me if I'm wrong, so he knows a bit more about the situation.
Yeah, but basically, I forgot, because I don't know the exact specifics either, but it was someone who had, it was something on social media, I'm pretty sure it was Twitter, was just accusing, this and that. And then shortly afterwards, Joe gave his rebuttal, and then a lot of the stories that were being told, or a lot of the accusations against him, they weren't making sense or they weren't lining up. And then the person who made those accusations basically just left social media entirely. So
yeah, so another situation we don't really know much about.
Yeah, kind of mysterious, but also kind of suspicious from both.
I mean, that's probably something that's gonna go away pretty quickly. I think, like, even then, not a lot of people are talking about this anymore. It's more just a thing that happened that was worth bringing up.
Yeah.
Similar situation. Go ahead.
I do find it interesting because I'm someone who's followed Joe for a long time, and I do find it interesting how he hasn't made any like comment, larger statement. He made something on Twitter, but I guess I was kind of expecting him to make something like a video in response or something. I guess it's kind of smart that he didn't.
Yeah, I think to me it never really reached his YouTube followers very much. Like, I don't think this ever picked up as much steam as any of the other situations.
I was gonna say if it became a bigger deal, he probably would have ended up.
It did seem to kind of just resolve itself in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
which
at least for him.
Which isn't necessarily a bad thing, so long as everything is like properly above table.
Right, as long as it was actually true that he didn't do anything. Right. But it would.
We don't have any information to judge this, so we're not going.
And I will say, it doesn't seem like somebody would drop it that quickly if there was actually something that happened. Like
everything here is speculation, essentially.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, similar situation happened to a YouTuber called Chilled Chaos, where someone came out with allegations against him, and then immediately he responded with like a list of essentially stuff proving that he was not involved in these situations. So there are people taking advantage of the situation. Then again, there are situations like I don't know if you guys have heard about what Cryotic did.
No.
Essentially, he has some allegations that he responded to and admitted to that are pretty sketchy. They're not quite as like legally severe as Zero stuff, whereas Zero stuff is I think pretty legally problematic. A lot of Cryotic stuff is harder to really
bag him.
Yeah, it's a good way to put it. But he admitted to it all. This video's up with that, and he's kind of had a little bit of a self implosion. So yeah, Cryotic is in a sketchy situation right now. Definitely did some sketchy stuff. Again, we don't really have a lot of details because none of the people involved are giving full details. But yeah, he did
It's
admit
kind of
to
why
it.
some of this stuff can be so difficult because a lot of people don't want to give full details.
Yeah, usually
You
I think if people are smart about this, it's better to gracefully make your exit and kind of deal with it in the ways it should be dealt with under like a legal system. But again, we have like zero situation showing that completely failed. So sometimes there's not another choice. There's a whole bunch of stuff with other streamers that happened. Most of those are true. It's a lot of allegations against a variety of streamers, which is generally just people being bad people in the public eye. Most of them aren't nearly as serious as the stuff that Zero did, but there are a lot of situations like that going on right now. And then the one I find the most interesting is I don't know if any of you have heard of the OPG group.
OPG?
No.
No,
Yeah.
I haven't.
So OPG is essentially, it's called the like operating performers group, online performers group, which is essentially think like machinima in the old YouTube days where they would compile videos and like pay out to creators.
Oh.
So
Huh.
they're like a partner that essentially handled a lot of advertising and getting sponsors for shows and whatnot. A bunch of stuff came out against one of their chief officers that was proven true very quickly. And then in startling fashion, pretty much every single streamer that was signed with OPG just quit. Like, immediately exited. One of them I watch a lot, Carnage. Immediately, he sent out a Twitter statement that was like, I cannot be under a company that condones this kind of behavior, and then left. And then there's an entire just storm of other OPG people doing that. And a lot of them are pretty well known. Like, I think Dodger was under OPG. There's a lot of streamers from a variety of different places were. And the weird thing with this situation is it never really picked up as much steam as the other stuff. This one was handled mostly under closed doors. So
Well,
I
it
think a
seems
lot
like
of people don't know about it.
They got what they had coming. You know, like it was resolved in favor of the person who was.
It was
I mean,
multiple
like,
people who were victims.
He got his comeuppance, you know.
Yeah, it was there were multiple victims and multiple
Right.
people involved, so it was
So-
a pretty big situation.
But now the company and him are probably dealing with the consequences of that, at least on some level.
Yeah.
I'm sure some people would probably prefer legal action be taken, but
It's just the weird thing for a lot of this is that OPG has not officially responded to any of this, and they have continued to sign new clients, which is a little
Well,
odd.
Oh.
But then again, this is a group that is mostly under closed doors. This is very corporate. It's not really like a public group. So we don't know much about everything going on. But it's curious that this happened, and there was such an immediate response from pretty much all the streamers signed to them that essentially instantly quit. So it's interesting. And they did take a financial hit for this. A lot of them relied on OPG for a significant sum of their finances because of the advertising and sponsorship deals, which they miss out on, obviously, if they quit. So it's an interesting situation of streamers like taking a legit hit to their finances to stand up for something, which I think is a pretty good thing to do if you have the capability to do it. But yeah,
It's
that's
one of the stronger messages that can be sent.
yeah, it's a strong message, especially because I think no one in the streamer group was like propagating misinformation. They were all just like, yeah, we can't stand for what happened and we're quitting. So I think it was handled a lot better than some of the other situations going on and resolved fairly quickly. But it's clear there's a lot of question marks for the streamers involved afterwards.
Yeah.
All right, so
Yeah.
with that, unless anyone has closing comments, I think we can pretty blanket say, don't abuse people. Just don't do it.
Be a good person. Keep it in your pants.
Be a human being.
Yeah.
Like, we all gotta share this place. Try and be a decent person. All right. Great. That's it. That's the negative talk, which means we have a game to play.
All
We have a game
right,
to play.
time for some.
We have a
Later.
game to play, and this is the COVID conference candid camera
Oh.
competition.
Jesus, how long do you spend on these names a week?
I just
what'd you
about to ask
what'd you
the
think?
same question.
Yeah.
I
like
came up with this
turn
game
that
about
down?
5 minutes
No.
before we started
That's the new
streaming.
game. We're all gonna guess how long it takes Ryan to come up with these stupid titles.
Okay, my guess is this: You know how he always is like, man, I don't have enough time to play video games with you guys. No, it's
Yep.
not because he's doing his classes. No, he's sitting down in his room with a nice glass of like scotch over the on rocks or something, and he's literally just sitting in his chair, facing the middle
Bourbon,
of the room
but
with his legs
continue.
crossed. Yeah, whiskey, bourbon, or whatever. Anyway, and he's just stroking his
It's all in
beard.
a red
And he's like,
background.
"Oh man, what is this game called?" And he sits there for hours. And I'm talking hours a day.
Someone comes to visit him, and it's just like papers line the wall with like the string
Yeah.
attached.
I have
and
sticky notes everywhere with different variations
exactly.
of
And like there's
puns.
wires, there's little like twine, on tacks like going between them, like this, yeah. And there's a little sticky note on his door that says, "I'm in my thinking zone. Don't come in."
That is on my door.
I know that. That's why I'm making fun of you.
All right, so
What's the game?
that was part of the game. The game is I'm going to give you a situation from the classic TV show Candid Camera, and what I want you to do is assign which COVID era press conference. So this is stuff like the Devolver conference, the Ubisoft Forward, the Sony presentation. Which COVID era conference would do that thing to its customers?
Oh.
So there's no
Wait,
points
wait.
here. This is free. It's
Wait, would
an
do what?
entertaining
Wait,
game to relax.
I'm lost. Say that again.
You'll get it when we start, Wyatt. So I'm gonna
Okay.
go ahead and say, here's our first situation. Which conference would be most likely to rig a golf tee to fall over every time you try to hit it? What
What?
conference would do that to its customers?
Do we have
Nintendo.
multiple choice, or is this blanket?
What do you mean?
Do we have multiple choice, or is this just
This is any conferences that have happened in the past couple of months. We've had a Smash Direct.
It would be Nintendo.
It'd be Nintendo because it's a goof,
Yeah, it's the goof. Nintendo is the goofs.
harmless goof, but it's a goof. It's funny. It's Sakurai's One More Thing. Do we have
Yeah,
consensus
exactly.
on that?
Sure.
I mean,
yeah?
who else would it be?
Seems pretty
Sony takes themselves way too seriously these days. There's no way.
Well, if we're talking about goofs, I mean, there's Devolver, but I wouldn't call their.
Would
Here's
Devolver be
the
that
thing.
lighthearted though?
Yeah.
No, they're not. They also
They're
weren't
kinda cynical.
funny. They also weren't funny this year, but that's besides.
Oh.
Okay. And I will say I do have companies in mind when I wrote these down. So Nintendo's a pretty good match for that one. That one is just a harmless goof,
Yeah, yeah.
So our next
Sure.
next one, I think you'll have some good ones for this. Which conference would be most likely to give customers coupons that say pay 20% more instead of 20% less?
Yeah.
No. Oh! Wait, I thought these things had actually happened.
Oh, these are Candid Camera episodes. It's a TV show
Okay.
where these all actually happen to real people.
Right.
It's classic American pranks.
So this actually happened.
American prank.
Yeah. This
Okay.
happened. It was a prank, so it wasn't like they didn't have to actually.
Right,
pay
right,
20%
exactly.
more,
That's
I
what I'm
assume.
saying, because EA would do that for real.
Yeah,
That's why I don't think it was EA.
for real.
Oh,
That's why I don't think it was EA. That's why I'm saying it was like Devolver or something.
who likes to dig at EA a lot?
It's got to be like an indie kind of thing.
I mean, yeah, that makes sense.
So I think Devolver.
That's a Devolver meme.
Yeah, I
Devolver
think so.
joke. All right. So how about ordering license plates with insulting phrases for their employees or customers?
Oh, that sounds like a Devolver thing too.
No. That one's a little bit different. That one's a little bit different.
This is stuff like a license plate that says loser or twit. Which conference would do this? We've got Sony. We've got EA is still up for grabs. We got Ubisoft, whatever pronunciation you choose.
Ubisoft.
Ubisoft. I think
All
we
except
probably
for
had a
that.
Warframe thing in there somewhere. That counts too.
Really?
Probably.
I
I don't
think
know.
it'd be any of those.
I would be surprised if
know.
we didn't. We got Cyberpunk's Night City Wire.
It wasn't Cyberpunk.
The
think they would do
immediate
that.
not
I'm
Cyberpunk.
trying to be so hyped about that game, yet I completely forgot about The Wire.
I'm excited for Cyberpunk.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, I could not tell you. Assassin's Creed.
Assassin's Creed. So
That's Ubisoft's conference, right?
yeah, Ubisoft did one today. The
Assassin's
original
Creed.
idea for this was probably Devolver, because it's like it's a joke, but it's slightly insulting
Yeah,
to your intelligence. Like it's a low bar joke.
yeah.
That might be funny once, but then they kept doing it, right? Like you keep handing them license plates that just get progressively more insulting.
Oh, so like their entire conference.
Yeah.
Who was it?
What do you mean? Who was it?
What's the answer?
There's no answer. This isn't.
Give me the answer.
There's not a winner.
God damn it.
You choose the answer. It's
No,
it's
give me
a
the
short
Ryan,
answer,
Ryan,
not-
this game is a solid 3 out of 10.
This
man.
game is a.
Right.
It's not a game. It's an improv
Give me an answer.
event. It's it's Devolver. That's the answer. It's Devolver.
All right, cool. Thank you. Devolver, final answer. Boom.
All right. Our final
Deal.
our final category is giving someone a ticket for blocking their own driveway.
That's EA.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
Yep. That is EA. All right.
Gotta be.
We've survived the game. You survived COVID conference
Yeah,
candid camera
I got
competition.
100%. I got 100%.
See, this game was built based off of that name, and then he had to come up with a game around
He
it.
did. He 100% did.
Well, so this
There's
was
no
originally. It was originally. There were two variations of this game. Originally, there was a game where it was Olympics, and I was going to ask you which conference would win in Olympic categories.
Oh,
But that proved to be extremely boring. So
See, I told you, he literally sits in his room for hours to come up with this stuff. He like just play testing for these little games.
look, you have to keep your
He's like,
sanity in check
yo.
somehow.
He's like, he goes down and talks to his dog and he's like, all right, Gracie.
Which one of these do
Play
you
this
prefer? I give her 2 water bowls, and then whichever one she drinks from first is the winning game.
Yeah. I believe it. All right.
All right, so that leads into our second topic for the day, which is the COVID conferences, aka the Devolver Direct, Ubisoft Forward, the Sony thing. We talked about the Sony thing a lot already, so we're gonna kind of glaze over that one. Night City Wire. What's your opinions on these conferences, these direct style videos
Give me games, man.
instead of E3?
It's kind of like what E3 was when it was fun.
I feel like the Night City Wire is probably it fits the best.
I feel like a lot of people are
The others still feel kind of conferencey, but just diluted a little bit,
yeah.
watered
But
down.
I don't know.
So
I feel
here's. Go ahead.
A lot of people are kind of tired of the more corporate side of the conferences that has been kind of weaseling its way in, where everybody and then people just want gameplay a lot of the time. I think just like show me some trailers, show me some gameplay, and send me on my way.
Yeah.
Maybe get up on the stage and say like, "Hey, we're making this cool thing, and it's gonna be this much money, but don't add too much fluff where you have some dude playing like a pipe on the." A flute on the stage,
For
rocking
a
out with the
long time.
banjo
For a
like
long time.
a long time. Okay, but as much as I say that, though, some of those performances are really cool at the Sony one. A couple
Yeah,
years ago.
the God of War performance was
Yeah.
extremely standout when they did that.
And you know what I actually want is if they ever have a trailer for Senua's Sacrifice, or not Senua's Sacrifice 2, Hellblade 2, just get that band out on stage and just have them sing the thing they had. in the
I
trailer.
would totally watch.
I would lose my mind. I
So-
wanted,
So one thing I've been doing is I actually went to E3 in 2018 or 2017, and so I've been comparing my experience.
I
With
think it
that
was
with
18,
how things are
if I
now.
remember correctly.
Yeah, it was the year they announced Fallout 76. That was 18.
That's a good landmark for E3.
yeah.
Yeah. So it was. Here's the thing: is that I wasn't part of the press, so I wasn't able to go to like the big showcases, like the media briefings and stuff like that. But I got to do everything on the show floors, right? And I was shocked. 'Cause I'm imagining like budgets of games are getting so huge right now, and I was shocked at just how much money they must have poured into their different like stations, right? So perfect example, the 76, and this is going to get back to this in a second, but I was thinking about this earlier. The 76 booth was this whole setup where it was like a part of the interior of a vault, and they had a bunch of people dressed up in like vault suits, and they were all talking in character and stuff like that as you walked by, and they would try and like flag you down and come talk to you. It was really weird, but it was really interesting. And I'm looking at it now, and it's like, you guys, by doing this, you guys have probably saved yourself so much money by not setting up these insane, crazy displays that so many people are just not going to experience. So it almost makes you
Yeah.
wonder, why they haven't been doing this earlier. And to be clear, like the show floor stuff, it was all super cool. Like, I mean, there was a lot of games that they just had this like display and you didn't actually get to play it. Like, I never got to play 76 while I was there.
Yeah, because I think a lot of those are meant for press. In reality,
but
not
like- but,
consumers.
like,
Yeah,
It's
that's
so
a weird
that
thing.
they would have these like weird fan servicey things for press. It's like that.
Well, it's because E3. So E3 only really went public a few, like 5 years ago, I think. Before then, it was literally just a press conference. Like you could not get a badge if you were a general consumer.
Well, when it first came out, you could. They then closed it off.
Yeah,
for a while.
then they closed it off for a long time. It was like almost a decade, I think.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
it was essentially the press conference, which is why all the money went into the presentations. And I don't think the booths and everything were that impressive in that era, but we don't really know because we don't have a lot of footage of the conferences when that happened.
Well, I would assume that means that they weren't very interesting, because if they were interesting, the press would probably be like, "Hey, look at this cool booth,"
Yeah.
so they could get some extra content.
And the booths were weird because they always like they were very inconsistent in terms of like, okay, we're going to set up this whole Fallout 76 thing, this big theme. You're not going to be able to actually play anything, but we're going to have all these costumes and funny stuff. And then when I went to Xbox, because they have their own building for some reason, they had this massive like setup for Battlefield 5, and like everyone was in their own squad and in front of a TV, so it was all 40 players like sitting next to each other. And it was just weird because I kind of
Right.
wished everything was like that, where you actually got to play something.
Yeah,
Just
just go to PAX instead.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm sure it has more to do with how far along the game is than
Mhm.
anything else. But
Yeah. I don't know. I will say I enjoy the wild booths at events like PAX. Clearly, like that's not happening right now in the situation we're in, and I don't know realistically if that stuff will start happening again or how quickly it will after all of this ends. Is we really don't have any estimates for that kind of stuff.
Well, here, the funny thing too is that E3 was going downhill before like
Yeah,
coronavirus.
E3's been on a spiral for a few years.
Yeah. So it's almost like this style where everyone's just doing their own individual streams was going to happen eventually, and then given what's happening right now, it just accelerated that.
Yeah, I will say that the stuff I miss is the whole kind of hype around the events. So E3 is like a concentrated week-long event of pure hype.
Yeah.
Which doesn't exist this summer. It's a lot of, okay, you can be excited during this event, or something specific will happen and you can kind of just watch that. But we don't have that same depth of like, this event is happening and you can get really excited over all sorts of stuff that the company's doing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's a bit of a loss. Jeff Keighley's Summer of Games thing is kind of trying to emulate that a little bit, but I don't really think they succeeded in making it feel like an E3 type thing. It definitely feels like its own thing.
I think there's a loss, obviously, to people who would go, but for the most part, people who stay at home and watch the streams, I feel
Yeah,
like don't
I
miss out
mean,
on much.
yeah.
I mean, because the weird thing was the one year I went, because again I wasn't able to go to like the big shows, so I was in my hotel room while they were doing that, and I was just watching them live streaming with everyone else, with a bunch of friends, and while I was like right next to the show floor, and I was like, this feels
Weird.
it felt weird. I was like, what's the point, right? Like, I mean, there's obviously like the booths, and I got to try out some cool stuff, but like those big like reveals are what you're there for. Like that's
the E3 energy.
Yeah, and the rest of it is just kind of like entertaining fluff.
But I will say, for the purpose of marketing, the situation we're in right now probably works a little better because it gives every bit of information more time to shine. Because you may not have a competing event for a while. Like the Sony conference was the only thing in that week, so it had like a whole week to itself of hype. And then we get stuff like Devolver and Ubisoft later on. I think we've got another Microsoft thing down the line at some point.
End of this month, yeah.
Yeah.
Showing off Halo Infinite gameplay.
Ooh, I'm
So
excited.
Oh,
It honestly makes perfect sense that this is where it would go, though, right? Because it's probably cheaper.
Yeah.
They get their
It's easier to
advertising
organize, absolutely.
with less competition. Like, they don't need to go to this event.
They're
They
saving
don't need
so
to pay
much
for
money.
plane tickets. Yeah,
They're
exactly.
saving so much
I don't know.
money.
Although I will definitely say some of the conferences have been misses. Maybe not completely, but like Devolver this year was, it's humor is subjective, so it definitely depends on who you are. But I think for us, the humor was just kind of, it hit once and then they said the same joke 4 more times. and it wasn't
Judging on
funny.
how we reacted with your previous game, I'd say that
Yeah.
estimate is very
It
accurate.
was it was a huge disappointment because honestly, like the highlights of E3, like in terms of like who did the best job, Devolver is always up there. Like they have these incredibly entertaining, self-aware shows. It feels like if Eric Andre did an E3 press conference is what they feel like, and they're hilarious. And this year, it was a flop. Like it just it's like what Ryan said. You know, it's their jokes went on way too long. They would have like an idea for a funny joke, and then they just stretched it out for too long, and they didn't
Yeah.
really have that much to show off. Even compared to previous shows they've had, they didn't have a lot to show. Fortunately,
That's definitely very true. Especially in the sake of. So I think Devolver did do one thing really interesting. They did the game that you can download, the Devolver Land Expo.
I haven't installed. I haven't played it yet.
Yeah, I've heard good things about it. I haven't played it yet. I do definitely intend to. I think that's a great idea. It's a fun little gimmicky thing. The reality is, like, they're not going to be good games, these like weird little expo things, because a game takes a long time to develop, and they probably had a month or two to do this.
Well, yeah, and it's being developed by the guys who are making Shadow Warrior 3. So I'm sure probably most of their attention was on Shadow Warrior.
It was probably like a skeleton crew of a few people at the most working on this. And even I bet what saved them time is it's probably running in Shadow Warrior's engine, which would definitely save time. And I'm sure Shadow Warrior's engine is pretty good considering the last two.
I would say that was the highlight when they showed off Shadow Warrior 3 at the very beginning. That looked super cool.
Looked very fun. And we have a bit more information about Shadow Warrior 3, so it's
Shadow Warrior has always been fun.
It's not going to be. So 2 was kind of this weird Borderlands-esque looter shooter with random levels. So it was a lot of like ARPG ideas put into a shooter.
So basically, not what Shadow Warrior is.
It still had like a story and in a linear story. It just had a bunch of like grindy stuff on the side.
Well, right, but like Shadow Warrior, if you're going back to the, I think it's 90s shooter, and then even their reboot, it's very much like
it was linear
levels,
story, like Doom-esque type stuff.
Yeah, it feels like, I haven't played them, but conceptually it seems like a really strange departure.
The thing with Shadow Warrior 2 is when I played it, it felt like most of that stuff was kind of just optional.
Yeah.
Like you honestly could just play it like Doom and just like rip and tear and have a great time.
The only thing I definitely noticed is that the levels are randomly generated and some of those don't work as well in the story.
Sometimes it doesn't really work.
Because they're really big. Like, way bigger than they needed to be a lot of the time. But that game is really fun. Shadow Warrior 2 is a great time.
It is super fun. Just because of the movement and combat systems are just so incredibly fun.
It's got some of the best first-person melee in a shooter. It's great.
I almost never use my guns. I just completely all the time just...
And even then, so Doom now has the same like system of that procedural kind of damage to enemies where you'll see like bones and whatnot if you shoot them in certain places. Shadow Warrior 2 was one of the first big like AAA type games to have that system. Or I think Shadow Warrior 1 had it as well. So the new Shadow Warrior 1. So that was really cool. It's got some really great shooting. It feels great to play. And I'm excited for 3 because they said they're going to do a return to the more focused linear experience, which I'm hoping means there's a lot more time put into level design, and they can really shine in the shooter designs that Shadow Warrior 2 didn't really take advantage of. Hopefully be fun.
We've kind of been shitting on Devolver a little bit. One thing I want to give them credit for is I don't think they had a single showing of a game without gameplay. And I really respect that because I think most of us are really sick of these CGI like trailers that don't show off any gameplay whatsoever.
Yeah, a CGI trailer is fine, but it doesn't do anything. Like, I'm never gonna buy a game based on the CG trailer. And I think the best example of CG trailers done right is probably something like World of Warcraft, where people that are playing the game know what they're getting. Because it's a game that exists. Like, you can play it right now. And it's a trailer for a new story. So a cinematic trailer works well in that scenario because it's getting you hyped up for the story of the next expansion and not really the gameplay or whatever is going on.
So
they have a different purpose.
So you could extend that same logic to kind of live service game. So so I feel like
Yeah.
Destiny would be in a similar situation.
Although Destiny,
Where-
it's a little stranger because I think a lot of people really want some changes from Destiny, whereas World of Warcraft is like an MMO that very much probably won't get like the gameplay in the MMO is not going to change. The gameplay in Destiny is
Well,
not going
it
to change.
WoW's gameplay has changed though.
It's
You know,
evolved. It's still the same core thing. Like you're still pressing numbers on a keypad to cast spells to do damage. Type
Sure.
deal. It's like and in Destiny you're always going to be shooting.
Sure.
Or swinging,
Yeah, or swinging.
because that's now the meta.
Yeah, I would say that it relies more on that. Destiny is more gameplay focused than World of Warcraft.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think most of the people playing World of Warcraft enjoy the gameplay, but it's not the primary reason they're playing the game. Whereas with me for Destiny, like if I'm playing Destiny, it's because I enjoy Bungie's gameplay.
Sure.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
But yeah, it's also CG trailers just don't really show anything tangible. I think the exception recently is from a few hours ago, we watched Far Cry 6's trailer.
Okay. Yeah.
That was a really good CG trailer.
Here's the thing. I'm going to give Far Cry a pass for two reasons. One, it's an Ubisoft Far Cry game, so I think we pretty much understand what the game's going to
That's
be.
not a
Kind of
good
from
thing
an
to be
early
saying.
point.
It's,
No,
I have my problems with Ubisoft because
yeah.
it's a Ubisoft game. Yeah, we know
Yeah.
exactly what the game is. But regardless, yeah.
But here's the thing too, is that the reason I'm also okay with it is that one of the best parts of a Far Cry game is the villain, and that's what this entire trailer was about.
Ooh.
And so it gave you a lot of good insight into who this person is, into who this or some insight into this villain character, and I'm totally fine with that because a Far Cry game is partially defined by that central villain character.
Yeah, it was a great trailer. Definitely would encourage you to watch it. It definitely builds that vibe of Far Cry villainy very well. It has me excited to play Far Cry 6 whenever it comes out because we don't really have any dates or anything.
There is an interesting theory going around that the villain's son, I forget what his name is, he has a scar above his right eye, and a lot of people have noticed that Voss had a similar scar in the same location.
That'd be cool. That would be cool if this
Yeah.
was like a prequel type deal for Far Cry and they were doing like the origin story of Voss. I'd be down for that.
That's the
it'd be
thing with like Ubisoft games that I've always had a problem with, where like whenever they come out with a sequel, it's an entirely different cast of people, and I like stories that continue.
I mean that is an extremely subjective complaint though.
It is.
That is I don't think anything you could ever dock a game for because like Final Fantasy has 1,600 games at this point.
Yeah.
That are all about different characters and it works.
And I don't
pretty
think, and I don't have, I don't feel that way for every single situation, obviously. But
yeah, and at the same time, like I would not see myself playing Far Cry 3-2. Like that's not something I don't really have an interest in continuing that story.
Far Cry 3-1.
3-1. I'll play 3-1. That's probably going to be 6. So
and to be fair, they kind of do with their DLC. Like I remember, like Far Cry 5's what was it? New Dawn.
New Dawn was a different game, but it was set after Far Cry 5.
It was sort of like what happened to Lost Legacy, Uncharted.
Yeah, that's a good way to
comparison. Although I think New Dawn introduced a lot of gameplay ideas that people were maybe not super into. That I think hopefully they don't fully go that direction.
But I
like
think
having levels
because we're talking about Ubisoft, I think overall I liked their show. I just felt like the pacing was ruined by having developers talk about the games that they just showed off and not really talking about anything that we didn't already see. And so it was very redundant.
We did say there was a lot of talking in the Ubisoft conference, and something that the Sony conference did really well is that there was almost no talking, which is always my preference when it comes to a games showcase type thing.
And to be clear, I'm fine with talking if they talk about something that wasn't already shown off. But if it's literally just a developer coming out and talking about what we just saw, with like nothing, with
Yeah.
no new information, it feels like a waste of time. It's what ruined the PC game show a few years back or last year because
The
they
PC
just
gaming show is always super long and just a lot of talking.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think the Ubisoft didn't nail it the same way Sony did. But they didn't bomb it. Obviously, it was a good press conference. We saw a lot of gameplay. Legion looks great.
Yep.
Valhalla looks like Assassin's Creed, but it looks fun. Like it looks like a good game. So hopefully we'll get more on these games as we're going forward. And a lot of these are closer to release than we thought they would be. Legion is releasing in October.
When's Ghost of Tsushima coming out? In a couple
Friday.
days?
Comes out on Friday.
Oh, crap.
Friday?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh baby, we're buying the Ghost of Tsushima.
Yeah.
Oh
I'm
shit!
definitely gonna be doing a few streams.
Is it only PlayStation exclusive, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, that doesn't matter to me because I got a PlayStation 4, baby. Let's go.
Yeah, and Ghost of Tsushima reviews drop on Tuesday, I think. So we'll know ahead of time if it's a good game, which has high hopes. I'm excited for that game. Really hope it's good.
It looks like weeaboo Assassin's Creed, and
That
I've
was
been waiting
something
for
we
that
didn't talk a lot
since the
about
day.
with the Sony conference. They didn't show Tsushima or Last of Us Part 2 at the PS5 conference, which makes sense,
Well,
I think, after
How
that
could they look
conference.
so close.
Yeah, because Last of Us Part 2 was releasing, I think, either immediately before, no, immediately after, like a week or two after. So it wasn't.
And they already
they
had a
didn't
big
need to
show for
market it.
Tsushima, which, you know,
It's
Yeah,
probably 'cause they
Tsushima
did
had
most
its
of
own
their
little thing.
They didn't have much more marketing to do. Like they could just show more gameplay, but like
Yeah, at this point, I want to play the game myself. Like they've sold me on it. So
Yeah,
they
exactly.
Don't need to
yeah,
keep
and it's not a
marketing.
PS5 thing either. It's a PS4 thing. So
Yeah.
they probably didn't want it in their show.
Although I would not be surprised if we got PS5 versions of these games.
I wouldn't be surprised either.
Although I will say one thing that I'm disappointed they didn't highlight in that PS5 conference is that the PS5 is backwards compatible with PS4 games.
Yeah.
There was no mention of that.
You know what I will say too is it's getting very annoying that neither Microsoft or Sony are announcing prices. Probably because they want one person to announce it and then undercut them, and it's very.
That's
annoying.
100% what's happening. And the thing is, like, if we hit September and I don't have prices for these things, I'm not gonna buy them because I need time to save money to buy them. Like it's a situation of people are not gonna buy these if we don't have prices. And I'm also concerned about like these things are coming out holiday, which means there's gonna be a lot of them reserved for Christmas sales. But if they're releasing in November, it might come to they sell out because production is affected clearly by COVID. So there's
I'm
less
buy one day
supply.
one. I got money everywhere, man. It's
So
just
what
falling
concerns
from
me
the
is that
ceiling.
these consoles might be way above the prices we're thinking. Because I think a lot of estimates are putting them at like 500 to 600, which 600 is pricey. That's a pricey console.
I've been hearing like lower than I expected though.
But these are all rumors. Like no one really knows what the prices are because
of course.
we have no clue.
People just saying things.
I think there was a leak at one point that was like $549 or something for one of the two, but that was very quickly proven false. So we have legitimately no clue.
Speaking of Thanksgiving, who wants to bet there's still going to be, Black Friday rampage deaths?
Oh, 100%.
100%. Of course. Have you seen America?
Yeah,
I have, and that's why I'm so worried.
You can't just
Not at
order
all
stuff
surprised.
online anymore. Like,
everyone buy your consoles online. It's not worth it. It isn't worth going to GameStop, if they're even still open after this, for a few hours to buy a console and then getting sick and possibly having complications due to
but think about it
disease.
this way: if you're sick, you don't have to go to work, so you can just play video games.
That's not a problem
So
when they
think
don't have a
about-
job because there's no work.
anyway.
Okay, well maybe you are okay, but now you don't have any obligations elsewhere. You can just say, "Oh, I can't do my laundry. I'm sick. Oh,
Imagine
I can't
how-
feed the dog. I'm sick." That's why you're playing the.
Imagine how desperate one has to be in order for them to intentionally get COVID-19 just so they don't have to go to work.
That is a
Imagine
power
that.
move right there.
That's a very powerful maneuver.
Destroy your lungs and have asthma for life, so you don't have to show up to work for a couple
Well,
of days.
I don't know about that one.
Also,
I had the Roni.
Miss
I'm
Rona.
chilling.
COVID is proven that it can cause brain damage.
Oh yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, it's
it's
very
getting
severe
worse.
cases. But all I'm saying is your boy's back in town.
Yeah, but you see, you are a young,
A sprightly young
generally
lad.
healthy
Generally.
boy. So
Generally healthy. No, that's correct. I'm generally healthy.
yeah, you see, there's no specifics there, but generally healthy. So like
In
the
the
odds
upper
of something happening
echelons.
to you are really low, but at the same time, like it puts it into perspective when
Yeah.
opening schools this coming month essentially means that you're getting into the situation of uh, even if it's only 1% of people getting the illness and having complications, that means that a couple dozen thousand people.
Couple dozen thousand, baby.
Yeah, like I think the
Yeah.
estimate was like 0.5% is 17,000 or something. So even if
0.5% of a country's population is a huge
it's
number.
a huge number. It seems
Anyway,
small because it's
okay.
percentages, but it's a huge number.
We're not talking about the Rona here, baby.
Yeah,
We're
we
talking
don't need to
about
talk about it. Everyone knows
video
about the Roni at
games.
this point. Everyone wants to forget about the Roni.
We're talking about video games.
Have we talked about EA's show at
No,
all?
I don't want to.
I mean, it really
we
They
it wasn't
told
that
me
notable.
They said money, 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 money. Probably, I don't know.
I'm trying. Other than Squadrons, I'm trying to remember what they announced. Hold on.
There was Squadrons. We got a Skate announcement, but we really don't know what Skate
Oh.
it is.
Right. Lost in Random, which was like that dice game, that die game where you have like a little pet die. Or that one.
That one did look
no?
really good, but we don't really know anything about it.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah.
That conference didn't really stand out very much. We got some Sims talk. Nothing was announced. It was just people saying The Sims is
a game.
a game for everyone. People already know that.
Largarga, which Bligan.
I mean,
So
the whole thing was basically just Squadrons, which we did get a pretty good look at.
Yeah, which looks really cool, but it's not a showstopper. Like that isn't a game that is the only focus of your show, and it kind of was for EA.
Yeah.
They really didn't have anything impressive to show with other stuff. Like this, we know they're working on another Star Wars project as well. There was a code name for it somewhere, but there's another Star Wars project in existence. We don't know what it is.
There was a lot of like mysterious in progress stuff. So what we thought was like Dragon Age 4.
That there was
like,
a Dragon Age. We did
stuff.
see DragonAge 4. They just did not tell us it was Dragon Age 4.
Yeah, there was.
It was confirmed
all, like,
after the fact to be
Frostbite.
Dragon Age 4.
It was all Frostbite related stuff. So
yeah,
we saw some like Dragon Age 4. We think there was some like whatever Battlefield DICE is working on next. Some like weird prototype footage of that or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, it's nothing terribly unique. Basically, it's the same thing as EA Play every year at E3, which is to say it's not great. They haven't really had an impressive showing for a while. That's not really a huge surprise because EA is generally everyone knows what EA's got going on. There's nothing huge to say there. We covered Devolver. Devolver they showed a lot of stuff they showed last year, and all of it looks cool. It's just not amazing. Like nothing there is super standout now that we've seen it already. Carry On looks really fun. We saw we got the weird thing that Devolver did. We got an announcement from a team working on a game that's hiring, but no announcement of a game or anything.
That was
weird.
That was weird.
It was a very strange announcement type deal.
It was part of this joke of like, we have nothing to show off, so we'll just show off like whatever. But like, it wasn't a joke though, because the team was saying that they're hiring people. So it's like, I think, yeah. Well, they tried to mask it as a joke, and it just didn't work.
It was super weird. It was kind of uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Although I will say that team has some really impressive people behind it that they just didn't really tell anyone about. So there's like veteran devs there from Total War, from a bunch of other, I think from a few of EA's franchises. It's a veteran studio it's a new studio made up of veterans from a lot of franchises. And the idea is that it's some game that's probably going to involve mass combat because it's a lot of Total War people. So that it's cool if that's what we're getting, but we really don't know.
I do love their name, Beans.
Yeah, it's
That's a
just
good one.
beans.
Oh, nice.
It was cute. Yeah, we did not get any real announcements out of that. We saw something called. So this is a weird thing. We saw a game called Clyja or Olyja. Clyja? Let me look this up. Something along that then said it was out now. And
Right.
the weird thing with this game is that it is not out now. There's a demo out now, but they didn't say it was a demo. So a lot of people were confused and thought this game was like purchasable now. It's not. You can play a demo. It's called Olyja. It is an O, not a C. But yeah, it's a neat looking little indie game. But we really have no clue what it's about, aside from like a dude with a spear.
Mhm.
It's apparently a harpoon, not a spear. Who would know?
You are supposed to, as the gamer.
Well, I just read the Steam page. It looks interesting. It's just like it's weird that they announced it to be coming out now, and it wasn't.
Maybe it
That's
was,
a weird
but then they were
misstep.
like, oop, and oop.
And we actually there was another situation like this. So there was a another games show a little while ago. It wasn't the New Game Plus Expo. It was something. It was something a little while ago. They showed a bunch of indie stuff. It was like the Indie Direct or something. I think it might have actually been called the Indie Direct. There was a game called Gloomwood, I believe, which is a like spiritual successor to the old Thief games. And what happened that was really weird, and this game looks really good. Like it's made by the people that made Dusk, so they make a lot of like the graphics are very themed after like PS1 era, but with higher res. And it looks really good. It looks like a very solid Thief style game with great gameplay. But they forgot to show the trailer in the in the press conference. So then they made an announcement that they were going to show the trailer after the credits. And then they just showed this trailer for this random game after the credits. And like, even though it looks really good, it's not. They essentially got cheated out of their actual game showcase because of this. It's a shame. It's like a really weird thing that happened.
I do love how the release date is soon trademarked on the Steam page.
I mean, New Blood is cool. They've made a lot of really good games, so I definitely recommend checking out Gloomwood if a Thief style game sounds up your alley.
Well, is it stealth though? Because they're giving you a bunch of, weapons.
It's Thief style, so it's themed after you can do stealth, but you can also kind of treat it as like an assassin game.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not quite 100% stealth. I'd compare it to Deus Ex probably. Is the newest comparison. But yeah, it's a cool game that it's sad that they didn't get their spotlight because of a weird mix-up with that showcase. So yeah, that's most of the conference news. There's not a whole lot else. We're kind of glazing over a few of them, but it's usually because either nothing huge was announced. Night City Wire. The one thing with Night City Wire I did want to mention, we learned that a bunch of YouTubers and streamers are going to have side quests in Cyberpunk.
Nice.
Jesse Cox, he shows up, he has no pants. You gotta help him or not help him, I guess. Co Carnage is in there somewhere. We don't know anything about him, but a handful of YouTubers and streamers are in Cyberpunk.
There was also a ton of people who did, get their hands on it. And
Yeah,
they all seemed pleased.
Yeah, Cyberpunk is shaping up to be if not a like masterpiece, at least a good game.
At least a good game,
And you know what?
as you would hope, coming from
CD Projekt,
CD
and like
Projekt.
8-10 years of development time, something along those
Right.
lines.
It would certainly be a shame if it wasn't.
And then there was one other bit of controversy with Cyberpunk. We learned that wall running was removed,
Oh, that's right.
Oh,
which
That's right.
some people took up in arms. But the reason it was removed is level design, because Cyberpunk is like this huge open world, and adding wall running to your game means you need to design around players having wall running, or else they're going to feel like it's useless.
Mhm.
and that was apparently proving to be too much of a challenge, which is, I think, completely understandable when they're doing an open world game.
Yeah, it's weird to get really upset over that one small feature being removed in this game that has so much else going on.
And
there were
I have faith that it's
throughout
being
the
removed for a reason.
development.
What was
Yeah.
that, Alex?
Oh, there were several features that were removed during the course of development. There were some that, they talked about more often than not, even though they only made concept
Yeah.
stage. There were things that were completely in the game, and then they took out for either time or compatibility reasons. It's a whole bunch of stuff.
And here's the other thing too, is that you can get upset about something like that all you want, but it's a very different attitude from a lot of AAA games where they'll show off features, then they won't be in the final game for whatever reason, and they just won't say anything.
Yeah,
You know?
they
At least-
told us that wall running is not there because of design reasons.
Yeah, they're being upfront about it. They're telling us, so
And they're telling us
know.
why as well, which I really like, is that it's not just it wasn't removed because I couldn't do it, it's removed because like it's not meshing well with the design of the game.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with removing something if it's not working. It becomes a problem when you don't make that clear.
Yeah, so I think it would be a lot worse if we got Cyberpunk in our hands, we unlocked wall running, and then it was disappointing.
Yeah.
Like that would be so much worse to me than it just not being there. Is it being bad or not fun to use?
Or I can imagine it being used in one side or one story mission and then not dealt with again.
Because in an RPG like this, you have to design around every ability the players will ever have access to because of the way they can do things generally, which becomes a huge issue when you're doing open worlds, because then it ups the development time for everything by a ton. So yeah, it's probably a good thing. I mean, not probably. It's definitely a good thing that it was removed, because it wouldn't have been good. And Cyberpunk has plenty of other things to do. Like, even if you're not wall running, you have a bevy of vehicles you can ride. You can like do a bunch of hacking stuff. You have drones. You can fly around.
Games.
You can do the whole brain dance thing they showed off. There's so much you can do.
Oh,
Wall running should not be. If you want to wall run, go play Mirror's Edge.
I am.
Here's
or
the
Dying
thing, though.
Light.
Being a cyber detective.
Here's the thing, though. It doesn't have super, awesome physics-based rock stacking like Assassin's Creed Valhalla does. So I really don't see how...
I can't use magnetism to fly like I can in Breath of the Wild.
Well, now I don't even want the game. Like, why would you say that?
Excitement 0%. It
hell?
doesn't include the ability to jump
all that
off of
hype I
high
had when my
places.
man Keanu Reeves came out on the stage, and his name is actually a drink that I can literally make because they made that video on how to drink about it, and I really want to make it because it looks delicious.
Same here. I've seen
Yeah.
what Binging with Babish did it. How to Drink did it. Outside Xbox.
It's called the
did it.
Johnny Silverhand, if anyone's wondering.
The Johnny
It's Johnny
Silverhand. Yeah,
Silverhand.
It looks really
we're
good.
dancing
I
around
wanna
and
try it.
saying the name of the drink.
Well,
or
'cause I
the
couldn't remember.
character.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Keanu Reeves is in there.
I think we can kind of end on Keanu Reeves, because that's unless there's something I'm glaringly missing from these conferences. There was the New Game Expo, which is a bunch of Japanese games. It's a bunch of JRPGs. A bunch of them looked really weird. A couple of them looked interesting. Most of them were just okay. Probably never gonna get played.
I feel like that's a lot of JRPGs are just okay.
Well, it wasn't just JRPGs. It was a lot of like weird Japanese games. There was like a thing about a cafe with monster boys that you could date.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's just a lot of stuff like that. That is
Japanese game.
very specific in its audience.
Yeah, that's like
And
Japanese
the
media in
highlight of that
general.
was definitely Ys 9. Are they at 9 at this point? Probably. I don't know. I don't know much about the Ys series, to be honest. But I hear they're good, and it looked pretty good. So there's a JRPG waiting soon if you're a fan of JRPGs.
Dope.
Yeah, that's
Dope.
about it. That's pretty much it.
Shout outs today?
Yeah, we do shout outs every
I got a
podcast.
shout out.
What's your shout out?
X4. Go play
X4.
it. It's cool.
Fun game.
Yeah, it's really cool.
And
I
see,
don't know why I didn't know it existed.
my shout out is X4, but it's the X4 Star Wars mod. And the
Yeah.
VRO variety rebalance and overhaul, because those mods make the game that's already really fun into really great. It's a good space game. It's kind of similar to Mountain Blade. Definitely check it out.
It's kind of like if Star Citizen and Elite Dangerous were better at balancing their content.
And like releasing anything ever?
Yeah, like kind of like that.
Yeah.
So it's like one of those games, but except I want to play it because it's like a full game.
Yeah, it's great. I streamed it earlier today and did an economic takeover. It was great. How about you,
Nice.
Alex? You got a good shout out?
Yeah, actually, I was able to shout out to my friend who socially
Yeah.
distantly came over today for the first time in a very long time.
I
So I was
hate
able to
friends.
socialize face to face with someone who wasn't my parents.
Wow,
Yeah,
that is little things like that really make.
You've held out a heck of a lot longer than I have, brother. Good work. Good to you. Good
I mean, but
on you.
you had it, so you're mostly okay.
Yeah, well, I'm
like you
sure.
don't need to be as careful. You just need to be careful not to give it to other people.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's a little different. But
We're vibing.
how about you, Wyatt? You got a good shout out?
Shout out to Ubisoft bugs because it was the most hilarious thing ever. There were several points. There were several points today where I laughed out loud because of how funny some of the bugs were. I ripped someone's shield out of their hand and hit it with them, and they just flew straight up in the air, and it was hilarious.
That's good.
Was this during a conquest battle?
No, because screw conquest battles.
Yeah, they're awful.
Actually, I do want to say there was one thing we did miss about the Ubisoft conference. Something I really liked that they did. They put all their announcements for old games in the pre-show. The pre-show had a bunch of announcements for games like Ghost Recon and other stuff. It was nice. It was relegated to that.
And
the only stuff we got
also
in the main thing was Siege.
They relegated the mobile games to after their big opener and all in one spot, and didn't really hype it up that much. That's the way to do it.
It only took a 2 minutes out of my life instead of Doom Eternal shaving years off of my lifespan. That's the show.
Cool.
That's the show, folks. We talked about a lot of things. Started off with some negativity, but we like to have positive vibes here.
Well, we plowed right through that negativity.
Yeah. I mean, you could say plowed. You could also say danced around it because none of us have a ton of information about what's going on.
We plowed.
But we plowed through it. We powered through it, which means the show's over. So I'm going to end it now.